Have you ever wondered why some people panic the moment all eyes turn toward them? Why even a simple compliment can make their chest tighten and their mind go blank? Why they whisper, "Please Donna, look at me," even when no one is actually watching? Your title. The psychology of people who hate attention taps directly into one of the most common insecurities adults silently carry: the fear of being seen, judged, or exposed. And your thumbnail text, "Don't look at me," captures that exact internal scream people hide behind a calm face. The combination works because it doesn't just attract curiosity. It speaks to the secret truth millions feel but never admit. Sometimes attention doesn't feel flattering. It feels threatening. It promises a video that understands them, explains them, and finally makes sense of what they've always felt but could never put into words. And that emotional pull is exactly why they'll click, and why they'll stay. Have you ever wondered why your heart beats faster when someone suddenly puts you in the spotlight? Why even hearing your own name in a room makes you want to disappear for a second? Why being noticed feels less like appreciation and more like danger? Why you rehearse what to say in your head just to avoid sounding awkward? Or why the idea of all eyes on you feels suffocating even when people are being kind? For so many adults, attention isn't exciting. It's overwhelming, exposing, and strangely painful. It's that quiet fear of being judged, misunderstood, or not appearing good enough. It's the pressure of carrying expectations you never asked for. And the most confusing part? You can be confident, smart, and capable, yet still feel like shrinking the moment someone looks your way. If you've ever felt this, you're not alone. And there's a deeper psychological reason behind it. Inside the mind of someone who hates attention, there's a constant tug-of-war between wanting to be seen and wanting to stay invisible. They crave connection, but the moment someone looks too closely, they shut down. They want to speak, but their thoughts race faster than their confidence can catch up. They want to belong, yet fear that being noticed means being judged. Most people think they're shy, but inside it's much more complicated than that. There's a deep hyper-awareness of how they look, sound, and behave. Every gesture feels like it's being analyzed, even when no one is actually watching. Their brain magnifies little flaws into huge problems, making harmless moments feel like high-stakes situations. So they choose safety, staying quiet, staying small, staying unnoticed. Not because they lack personality, but because their inner world feels too sensitive to survive the spotlight. And the more this internal struggle continues, the harder it becomes to step out of it. For many people who hate attention, the story didn't start in adulthood. It often began years earlier, in moments they barely remember but still feel. Some grew up in environments where being noticed meant being corrected, compared, or criticized. Others were taught directly or indirectly that staying quiet was safer than standing out. Childhood moments of embarrassment, shame, or public mistakes can linger for decades. And the brain learns quickly: if visibility hurts, avoid it. Social anxiety can also play a huge role, making even harmless interactions feel like silent tests they're terrified to fail. Low self-worth adds another layer, whispering that they aren't good enough, interesting enough, or confident enough to be seen. For some, perfectionism fuels the fear, because attention feels like an invitation for people to spot their flaws. And then there are the overthinkers, replaying every interaction in their minds, magnifying small moments into proof that attention is dangerous. These psychological roots don't make someone weak. They reveal how deeply the human mind tries to protect itself. And once you understand where these patterns come from, you begin to see why avoiding attention becomes a lifelong habit. People who hate attention often move through the world in ways that look normal. But every action is carefully calculated to stay unnoticed. They speak softly, not because they're timid, but because loudness feels like exposure. They avoid walking into rooms late, terrified of all the eyes that might turn toward them. They rehearse responses before speaking, trying to eliminate every chance of sounding awkward. They sit at the edges of groups where watching feels safer than participating. They downplay compliments, brushing them off as if they don't deserve them. They avoid birthdays, surprises, or anything that might put them at the center. Even online, they hesitate to post photos or share opinions, fearing judgment from invisible crowds. They dress in neutral colors, not to be minimalistic, but to avoid drawing attention to their appearance. They stay quiet during conflicts, not because they agree, but because confrontation feels like a spotlight. And the most subtle sign? They blend in so well that people often assume they're fine, while inside, they're fighting the constant urge to hide. To someone who hates attention, being noticed doesn't feel neutral. It feels like stepping under a spotlight that exposes every flaw. Their brain enters performance mode, even when they're not performing. The fear isn't attention itself, it's what attention might reveal. What if they look awkward? What if they say the wrong thing? What if someone notices something they've been trying to hide? Their mind jumps to worst-case scenarios, replaying imaginary judgments from others. The sympathetic nervous system fires up, triggering tension, sweating, restlessness, or mental blanking. Even positive attention feels overwhelming because it raises expectations they don't believe they can meet. And deep down, attention feels like exposure, a moment where the facade might crack and the real them might be seen. This is why they retreat, shrink, or avoid the spotlight, not because they dislike people, but because attention feels like emotional vulnerability in its rawest form. Avoiding attention may feel safe, but over time, it shapes a person's life in ways they don't notice at first. Opportunities pass by because they're too afraid to be seen. Relationships suffer because they struggle to express themselves fully. Their potential stays hidden, trapped behind fear and self-doubt. People assume they're quiet, uninterested, or distant, when really they're protecting themselves from discomfort. Their confidence erodes slowly, shrinking with every moment they stay silent. Their world becomes smaller, safer, and more predictable, but also lonelier. And the tragedy is that they never realize how worthy, capable, and remarkable they are, because they're too busy hiding from eyes that never judged them in the first place. This avoidance doesn't just steal attention, it steals connection, growth, and the chance to be understood. So the next time you meet someone who avoids attention, pause before assuming they're shy or uninterested. Behind that quietness is a mind that feels too watched, too exposed, or too afraid to be fully seen. Every avoided spotlight is a silent story, one you may never hear. But here's the truth they rarely admit. They don't hate being seen. They hate being misunderstood. And the moment someone finally understands them without judgment, their entire world begins to soften. So ask yourself this: what would change in your life if you stopped shrinking every time the world looked your way? What part of you is waiting to be seen, not for attention, but for acceptance? Because sometimes the thing we fear most, being noticed, is actually the first step toward finally being understood.